What's up?
Worked.
It did work. How
Oh
you
my
doing?
God. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Your shirt is awesome.
Thank
You
you.
you got a nice little glow to you,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
and the
yeah.
smile is radiant.
Some call that a sunburn, you know. I don't know, man. It's just like every day the arduous task of fighting the sun. Eventually you just like get a little lazy and then that's when it gets you. So
Oh man, life is hard.
uh,
Life is hard for Michael Sokolowski right now. My
yes,
goodness,
it is. It
my
is. Very much
goodness.
so. What's
Um,
up, bud?
how's the trip been?
It's been good. I've had a good amount of animals, more to come. We're off on to safari this weekend for the closing activity of the trip.
So your when you went and saw like the giraffes and stuff like that, that's not a. I mean, it didn't look like a proper safari. What was that? That was like a zoo
Yeah,
or like what was?
that's Draft Manor. And actually, I gotta hand it to the rich people that started this thing because this is what rich people should be doing is like creating dope stuff for the general public to be a part of. But they basically built this like giant mansion where you can stay over and drafts can like basically walk up to your dining table and like you know dine with you essentially. But there's a whole different section for just the draft sanctuary, which is like you pay an entry fee, you get like a little cup of pellets and you go and feed the
Yeah,
drafts and they tell you their names and all that stuff. It's pretty fun.
amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. For those who are kind of like, what the hell are Mike and Saad talking about right now?
Yeah, what's
Mike
going
is in
on?
Kenya.
Yeah,
Mike is in Kenya. He's on vacation, but naturally, story time doesn't take a break.
never
So
stops. That's the fun thing
never,
about story
never
time.
stops. Yeah.
We could be wherever. So,
Yeah,
but
I've
yes,
been in Canada. I've been in Canada. I've been in Mexico. Now he's in Kenya. I mean, look, 42 weeks. I counted last night. 42 weeks straight. So,
yes, yes.
so welcome to those kind of jumping in today with us today. Because Mike is in Kenya, figured it would be worthwhile, especially as I mean, recently we had Waleed on to talk about
Hmm.
what's going on in Canada and obviously Canada developed nation, so to speak, right? And
Yes,
obviously every
right.
country is different. Every country has its own things going on. We're going to be talking about a few other countries today. Just again, not that we're experts by any
No,
stretch of the
no.
imagination, but we have some kind of like ancillary experiences, conversations that we've had, with real estate regarding to real estate in other markets, and we thought, especially given like the world is so connected, even real estate's global now, right? Like we have people in China investing here
Mhm.
in the U.S. We have people in the U.S. investing in Europe and in Dubai and what have you. Like it's important to just kind of have some of these conversations. So yeah, we're gonna dive in a little bit, and obviously, where better to start than in Kenya? So what's
Yeah,
going on, Mike?
yeah. Let's do
Tell
it.
us
Well,
what you know. Tell us
obviously,
what's interesting.
the first few things, obviously, you're looking, I'm here, I'm looking through it through a real estate perspectives. The first things I see, of course, are realtor advertisements. And guess what they're doing in them?
Yeah, yeah,
Dude, it's global. You can't escape it. The realtor cross arms, like, hey, there's a house. It's inescapable and it's wild and it's prevalent. It's kind of everywhere over here.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
So we definitely, so those catch my eye. But then you start to see like you're going the way you kind of travel through the city. There's like kind of roundabouts throughout, and within those are giant billboard advertisements. And I would say three-quarters of them are for luxury high-rise buildings that are either being constructed or have just been constructed, and all that. Um, so that catches my eye as well. And it's like a very you know that is so differentiated from like all the other kind of livable structures within Kenya, and they very very much stick out. There is a very heavy international population because this is like I believe the global capital of Kenya. So a lot of the embassies. Sad, you still there with me? Okay, cool, perfect.
I mean,
A lot of the other countries' embassies are out here, so you have delegates and international folk coming in and all that sort of stuff. So I think like some of them appeal to that group business people and all that over here. But I'd say that the main thing that has become a revelation to me is that there's a highway, a main highway within Nairobi, and there is now there have been built an additional section of highway that the Chinese built. So it's a public-private partnership through the government of Nairobi and China. And China got there, and they, like they do, they're very efficient at building this type of stuff, right? They get done within a couple of years. It eases a lot of the traffic and a lot of the commotion within the main central artery of Nairobi. But now China, one, has the rights to the tolls that are paid on this piece of the highway. So they're collecting their money back that way. But that allowed them, by doing, a huge service to the community at large, now they get sort of preferred treatment for a lot of these buildings. And of course, a lot of the high rises that we see being advertised are built by Chinese companies. So that's unloading a few of the things as I'm learning them over here.
But are those buildings, are they like condos? Are they apartments? Like,
yes,
what's the setup?
They're condos for sale.
Okay.
They're advertised in shillings, but that they equate to even like the top end are like $250,000 in that luxury high rise building. As you go further down, probably like 75 grand, 80 grand for those individual condo units. And the way it's paid for is that you can reserve the spot as the building is just getting underway. And by the end of completion, you'll have paid a lot of the amount of the condo off by that time. So you reserve it early on.
And I want to get back to that point in a second, because I've heard that model in other parts of the world as well. But in terms of financing, because it's being built, it's like Chinese developers in those cases. In Kenya, who's doing the financing? Is it Kenyan banks?
That is a great question. I'm not particularly certain, but I believe that the local Kenyan bank, the rates are extremely high for that type of product, which is why you end up, because you haven't been given a deliverable good yet, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the condo yet for those 3 years. You pay a lot of the price of the condo off over those 3 years and then have a much smaller loan once you actually move into the unit.
And that's a fascinating model, because I mean, there's really a give and take, right? Like, I think on the one hand, you have less debt at the end of it. I mean, granted, it takes a long time to get your product, right? Like, you can't see any return out of it or anything like that, aside from potential appreciation over the years that it takes to develop. I think I used the word, but potential appreciation. You never know. Anything could happen, right?
Actually, I looked at allegedly it's 8% over last year is the increase in valuation of Nairobi real estate.
Like in general?
In general, 8% year over year. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, 8% is a good return, right?
It is.
It's a solid return, especially with what's going on in the general global markets right now. But one thing, the flip side of that equation, like, on the one hand, you have less debt, all that kind of stuff, but your money's tied up for a little while too. So you have to keep kind of throwing money at it, and to get like a I don't want to say smaller asset, but your money doesn't go as far, because you keep paying your debt down, where instead of having like having a larger loan but larger asset, right? Earlier, you can use that equity for something else. Now you have to kind of pay that down. Now the flip side of the equation is exactly what I just mentioned. It's harder to scale. So as an investor, like it's kind of like, I'd be really curious to know what the trajectory has been over the last like 5-10 years on these types of projects, right? And that's a much deeper discussion. But the reason I bring that up is because the UAE is developed. It's not a developing nation. It's already developed. But that model is prevalent there.
Okay,
where, like,
tell me what you know about what's up.
Yeah. So the tons of new construction going up. Obviously, it's a hot area in the world. Like very posh and luxury and all that kind of stuff. That's what people know about Dubai, right? It's kind of like a glorified Vegas, essentially, right? It's like just everything's to the nines, and as a result, because of the low income tax, in fact, zero income tax, right? There's been a lot of influx of foreign nationals, right, coming in, and and so there's been growth in terms of real estate, a lot of condos and things like that being built up. We're talking luxury stuff, and some of them are super high end. Some of them not
Yeah.
so much, but you can get like really nice ones for, again, you said it, like $200,000, 300,000 US dollars. So, but the model is such that, at least from what I'm hearing, because I have a friend who's actually invested in a couple of these units, is exactly that. Like, it takes a few years to get your unit ready to go, but you got to pay it down over time. Basically, there's like
Hmm.
an installment due every 6 months or every year, depending on how you have it just set up.
Yeah.
Um,
I hear it's
and and
quarterly, I
and
believe. Yeah.
yeah, and by the end of it, either you don't have a loan at all, or you have a very small loan, right?
Hmm.
Relative to kind of what we do here in the U.S. and Canada and what have you. The Western world is very different, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It does
and
look
I
like
think
different.
there's two sides of the coin there, and it's important to kind of just grasp that, look, regardless of what your beliefs are, and some of it's cultural, some of it's even religious, right? When it comes to interest and things like that,
Hmm.
like I think you've got to see financially what those two sides look like, and the numbers are quite different too. So I don't know. I mean, so what you were when you were describing it to me the other day, when it comes to Nairobi real estate, that reminded me immediately of what I've heard in Dubai,
Yeah.
when it comes to new construction.
Yeah, and it's not, it can't last forever doing that. I mean, like literally every corner you turn, there's a name of a new building that's to discover the true luxury of Africa, and then it's got like the pool on the in the building and all that stuff, and it's just like, but there's a new one. Like no name is repeated that I've
Yeah,
seen, so they've
right.
got to be going
Yeah,
up kind of all over the place,
right.
spread out.
Yeah,
Um,
everyone wants a piece of the pie, and amazing ROI. Get in
yeah,
early and like
it did
reserve your
say one of
unit.
them
Like,
did say
there's
that
that
exactly.
there's that kind of stuff. There's that kind of stuff. I mean, I've seen the examples of advertisements for these ones in Dubai. Actually, what's interesting is that some of these companies that that are building in Dubai, they're actually holding costs at various cities around the U.S., including Boston, to get people to invest in
Oh,
those units. So it's
yeah,
actually like,
that's fun.
I mean, so, but I mean, I think it depends on who your target market is, and I think, like, these Emirati developers seem to be targeting the U.S., whereas,
Hmm.
frankly, I feel like the Chinese are being a lot smarter about it, and targeting everyone else.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, that's a whole different discussion, but it's obviously there's some strategy involved there.
Oh, totally, right? Like especially that's what was so blatant to me was like, okay, you build this section of highway and ease people's lives, and everyone's like a fan of this thing. There's not anybody that's against this particular thing being built, but now you're in. Now you can kind of ease.
Yeah,
It's easier to get
yeah,
permits and acquisitions for the things that you do want to build, and it's an insane thing to watch happening because like our
yeah.
market's so mature that like these big plays are very uncommon,
Right,
where we're doing business.
right, right.
So,
Imagine if, like, the big dig was financed by, I don't know, Saudi Arabia.
yeah, yeah,
like,
right.
how different things would be
Yeah,
here,
that
right? But
Encore's
like,
casino would look very different. Like all that, there probably would have been a lot earlier on too.
yeah. My next question for you, Mike, is, like, you mentioned permitting. You
Yeah,
mentioned, like, just like in terms of process to get some of these buildings up and things like that. Is it like, I mean, I think I know the answer, but is it like how it is here? Do you have to kind of be connected to a local entity of some kind, like a joint venture almost, in
yeah.
order to make these things happen? Do you have any intel on that?
Yeah, yeah, and these are the things that like for anybody like hopping in, this is just like interesting stuff that Sad and I are discussing and just like learning about it. And of course, there's a deeper dive to get to know a lot of these processes. But the one thing I've noticed is that like there is much less, uh, you know, because this land was kind of just there and these new buildings are going up and all of this is new, the stuff is not mature. So a lot of the processes are really just like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, for some of this to get something approved. Which, you know, you talk to anybody in Boston decades ago, like that's kind of some of that stuff was exactly that way as well, right? Somebody's like
Yeah.
cousin is in politics and all that stuff. But as the market matures, it becomes more and, you know, there's more and more restrictions, and it's harder and harder to kind of do that without going through the proper channels. So yeah, my basic thing is what I've noticed about that, and then just the title process, which I don't know if you want to get into yet, but that's those are the
Go for
two
it.
blatant
Yeah.
things. Title seems to be a bitch out here. To put it bluntly, man. Like anybody can kind of have claim to, especially once you get outside of the city proper, and it's kind of it's much more rural. Anecdotally, one of the guys that was on the trip this past weekend, you know, him and some buddies wanted to get on the coast and buy an Airbnb, fix it up, and rent it out for people that want to go vacation. The coast of Kenya is kind of like the Cape Cod of Massachusetts, right? People tend to live in the city and then go out there for the nice weather and the weekends and everything. And his house happened to be in between two conservancies that were privately owned by now you're getting into like random billionaires owning like hundreds of thousands of acres of stuff with all these animals, and it's trips for people and all that. But his happens to be like right there. And so both of them sued him immediately upon like he was getting into some engagement of purchasing this house, to the point where he couldn't necessarily prove 100% like I'm going to own this without like any sort of trouble from these people.
Yeah.
So they ended up settling on a 3x return payment to him. So he's earning 3x what he put into the house from them, and then the lawsuit's being dropped, and that land will now be part of the conservancy. So like he tried to
So
buy something.
they tried to sue him, but instead they're just paying him.
Yes, just to end it, right? Because
Wow.
it could like neither
Yeah.
party can really like prove anything. So it sounds like this would go on for a long time. So they reached a settlement of
Okay.
3x.
Yeah. And so I guess from his perspective, he's like, well, I'm making 3x,
Yeah,
so yeah, I can just
right,
be done with
right.
it, move
And
on.
that's the
Yeah.
yeah, you can't fight these large entities out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So, but for the most part, I think on the coast, like there can be the way in which deeds and other things are shown, and how you even find out who is the owner of a plot of land is ass backwards.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's the Wild West a little bit in terms of
Got
that.
it. Yeah. I've experienced that myself. Well, not personally, but with my family
Yeah,
in Pakistan.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
If you can provide that story, I think that's super interesting.
yeah, I mean, like, so like, my family has owned real estate in Pakistan while living here. Like, while living here, my parents bought a condo there. Um, they or a plot of land or whatever it was, and not being there, right? You kind of like need somebody on the boots, like you need boots on the ground to make sure that like your affairs can be kind of like handled properly. You can't just trust an attorney. You can't just
Yeah,
trust like just like you can't trust like, I mean, honestly, you can't really trust
it's a
anybody
thing.
because there's no real process, right? There's no real process, and
Yeah,
everybody can be bought. Everybody can be bought. And that's what happened is like, I'm kind of throwing my family under the bus here, but like, hey, this is story time. Let's go.
yeah,
So like,
that's right. We're being brutally honest.
like my dad, he bought a condo. He trusted his brother to like make sure the paperwork was done properly and what have you. And what did his brother do? He put the condo in his own name. And there's nothing that can be done to like unless obviously I don't know, my dad would have to go there and who knows, spend how much time, how much money trying to fix that issue. But I mean, like this is kind of what I'm saying here. And that's why I asked about like the joint venture thing, or do you need to partner with somebody and what have you.
Yeah,
I think one big thing, if you're looking to invest in these foreign countries, um, I mean, actually, even not in foreign countries. Like, for example, like, I invest in Texas. I don't know Texas, but I
Right.
have boots on the ground that I trust.
Hmm.
I have a relationship and somebody I'm paying. I have a written agreement, all that kind of stuff. Again, but this is the United States of America. It's a little bit different. I mean, we got our own issues here. But I mean, I'm saying if you're going
For
to be
now, it's
investing
different. Yeah,
elsewhere,
exactly.
if you're going to be investing elsewhere, like I think it's so important to have that trusted team, whatever that looks like, and it's going to vary country to country and what have you. But it's not enough to just kind of like, hey, I have family, or I have a friend, or I have somebody who I know through my family. Even attorney is not enough. Like you really, unless you're intimately familiar with like the details and like the dynamic when it comes to it's probably not just real estate related, but really any type of business you're operating, you need to have some sort of partner. Like
Yes.
like
Yeah.
it's hard to do it otherwise. It really is. So
Yeah. And
again,
with it
unless
being,
you yourself are intimately familiar with the details and have your network and things like that, which most people don't. So I mean, I'm speaking from like, again, not my personal experience, but my family's experience with that. It's extremely difficult. So yeah, I mean, like you said, Wild Wild West.
yeah, and with it being real estate, yeah, you need somebody like in physical proximity to the thing. It can't just be digital stuff going on there. Ben Aiken, what's up, Benny? How are you? He says, "What up,
What's up, Ben?
boys?"
What's up,
Just
Saman? What's up, Kelly? Or Kellyanne, I should say. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We're talking about international markets right now, specifically developing countries, and kind of like how different it is naturally, but also just diving
yeah,
into some of the nuances, given Mike is in Kenya right now and been looking at real estate signs, talking to some agents, and kind of seeing what the dynamic is when it comes to
yeah,
the real
dude.
estate world, especially in terms of foreign investment. So
I'm
um,
I'm looking
so if you
forward
guys have
to.
any, so I will say real quick, if anybody
Yeah,
else has any experiences with foreign countries and foreign real estate, anywhere outside the U.S., we've talked about Canada before and things like that. Please share your thoughts, and we'd love to kind of hear from you.
yeah, yeah. This is like one of those ones where you like want the questions or want the comments. I'm sure people have anecdotal things going on, but the other thing that I've noticed is kind of like a little further away, but just in terms of renting apartments here and doing a let, no one has a right to the listing of an apartment. So, like, you see something online, literally like 30 agents will start. Like, if you put in a request for something, like 30 agents will start trying to be the one to get you there, and the landlord is the one who pays the leasing agent.
I
So there is
see.
no, in terms of the other way where there's like the landlord has an agent, but then also you might have an agent and figuring that out, or the landlord's agent is in control of this. No, there is no singular person in control of it. So it's just
Interesting.
chaotic.
Got
Yeah.
it. So the landlord is always representing themselves.
Yes.
I see. I
It's
see.
just like
So there's no
this is my
there's no concept of like a rental agent, at least when it comes to the listing.
right.
Only like agents that are representing the renters.
Someone's trying to, they see the property, they're trying to find somebody and fill it so that they can get paid by the landlord. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And there's no, so that's always the case, is that the landlord is paying the agent
Right.
to kind of bring their tenant in.
Exactly.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I I always thought that if you are an agent working on behalf of a renter and looking at places, they should be responsible for your half of a month fee or something like that. But if somebody's listing something for a landlord, the landlord should be paying that person. The renter should not be doing that. I don't
You're not wrong.
I don't believe it. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think like
It's just like,
um,
who are you working for? That person should be paying you at the end of the day.
yeah, you're not wrong, man. It's funny though, right? Because like in Greater Boston, which is not like other parts of the country, right? Like uh,
Right.
at least up until now, demand for even rental units has been so high, and that's ultimately what's um, driving the who pays who dynamic. But like, it's been so
It's
high that the landlord is being paid sorry, the agent that's like the agents that are involved are being paid by the tenant because there's just not enough places. Which I do agree with you. It's not good for like the general public and the economy and the issues that we have when it comes to wealth gap and all that kind of stuff. I agree. I mean, it's already expensive to rent, and now you're adding another $3,000 that these
Yeah.
tenants have to pay. It's yeah. I don't disagree with you. It's just yeah. I mean, obviously, selfishly, as a landlord, it's like kind of nice, but it's not good for the country.
No,
It's
no,
not.
no, no. Yeah. Right. And then you
Yeah.
get, and that's here because each agent is working on that particular party's behalf. If you go to a place that they're having difficulty filling the vacancy, then of course the landlord's going to pay the full thing probably because
Yeah.
they need a
Yeah.
tenant. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
it really is all about
Right.
the demand of that particular area. Hockey
Yeah. I
Dad
mean,
Brian,
just to
Aaron
get
Kennedy,
back
what's
to I was
up?
just what's going
Saying
on,
hello.
everybody?
What's up?
Um, I think I think like I think it just goes to show though that like and we've talked about this before, like it is such a bubble here, but that's why it's so important to be knowledgeable about what's happening in other markets everywhere because it can help inform. Because I mean, it may not be like this forever, so it's important to be informed how things might change here, even here in
Mhm.
Greater Boston, like as things evolve, as things change. I mean, obviously, ultimately, supply and demand rule all. Like I mean, regardless of what's happening socioeconomically, politically, interest rates, like whatever. Like
Yeah.
supply and demand is a tried and true and like common thing that you can look at to determine. Like literally, I was talking to the agent that was the buyer's agent that was there at the inspection earlier today, and he was talking about how some again in the last couple of weeks he's put offers in on places where the places got 24 offers, 37 offers. Like guys, that's happening right now here. Like
Yeah.
insanity. That is insane, right? And especially given everything that's happening economically. So it's really interesting to hear, what the models are in other parts of the world, and it's important for us to take note of them because, things can
Yeah.
change in a drop of a dime. Any last thoughts, Mike?
I'm 7 hours ahead of
Right.
you, and and the uh, the the time zones have been challenging. So I'm gonna get to bed after this.
uh, Mike, thanks for coming in for hopping on and like
Of
this
course,
odd time for you. Get
how could
some
I
get some
miss
rest. We'll see. Are you gonna when are you back?
Tuesday?
Okay, so next
So
week we'll be
the
back in our normal
yeah,
time without
yes,
buffering,
with
without having to change up times. So let's get it. Thank you everybody for joining. He's Mike. I'm Saad. This is Story Time. We'll see you next week.
bye, 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 Saad. Good work, buddy.